The ground shook with such force that entire villages in Afghanistan were reduced to rubble within moments, leaving behind a trail of devastation, grief, and urgency. Reports confirm that more than 600 lives have been lost in this catastrophic earthquake, and the Taliban Interior Ministry has issued updates highlighting the scale of destruction. Earthquakes are not new to this region, but this particular one has exposed once again the vulnerability of Afghan communities, many of whom live in mountainous and rural areas where homes are built with mud and stone, making them especially fragile when the earth trembles. For those who survived, the memories of collapsing walls, falling roofs, and cries for help will haunt them for a lifetime. Families have been torn apart, with many still searching desperately for loved ones buried under debris. Understanding the science behind earthquakes helps us realize why Afghanistan is so prone to these disasters. The country sits on several fault lines where the Indian tectonic plate collides with the Eurasian plate. When the plates shift suddenly, the energy released travels as seismic waves, shaking the land violently. Unlike developed countries with strict building codes, Afghanistan lacks widespread earthquake-resistant infrastructure, which magnifies the devastation. When a powerful tremor hits, mud brick houses crumble instantly, leaving people trapped without any warning. In this latest quake, aftershocks have also been reported, making rescue operations even more dangerous for those trying to save lives. The Taliban authorities, who are currently in charge of governance, have quickly mobilized emergency teams, urging the international community to provide assistance. They have announced death tolls, coordinated rescue operations, and attempted to provide relief to the affected areas. Despite the political differences many countries have with the Taliban, humanitarian principles dictate that help must reach ordinary Afghans, who are the true victims of this tragedy. Muslim nations especially have a moral and religious obligation to support their Afghan brothers and sisters, sending aid, medical supplies, tents, and food for those who now sleep under the open sky. In Islam, helping those in distress is considered one of the greatest acts of compassion, and at this moment, Afghan families need that solidarity more than ever. The scale of destruction also reveals the limitations Afghanistan faces in disaster response. With an economy already weakened by years of war, sanctions, and isolation, the resources to mount a large-scale relief operation are limited. Helicopters for transporting supplies, modern medical equipment, and search and rescue dogs are not readily available. Instead, villagers and local volunteers are digging through rubble with their bare hands, guided by the faint voices of survivors calling for help. International aid organizations, when allowed to enter, can play a crucial role in filling these gaps, but logistics remain a massive challenge due to remote mountainous terrain and poor infrastructure. Roads are damaged, landslides block access, and some villages are so isolated that it takes hours or even days to reach them. For many Afghan families, the earthquake did not just take lives, but destroyed livelihoods as well. Livestock perished under collapsed barns, farmland was torn apart by landslides, and precious food supplies were buried under dust and debris. As winter approaches, this disaster could turn into a humanitarian crisis, with survivors facing hunger, disease, and bitter cold without shelter. Children in particular are at risk, as trauma, malnutrition, and lack of medical care threaten their fragile health. This is where Muslim communities around the world can step up, organizing relief efforts, donations, and awareness campaigns to ensure that Afghan children and families do not suffer in silence. On the technical side, earthquakes are measured on a scale of magnitude that determines their strength. While the official magnitude of this quake has been recorded, what matters most is its shallow depth and proximity to populated areas, which amplify the destructive power. Shallow earthquakes, even if moderate in magnitude, can cause immense damage because the energy is released close to the surface. The affected region, filled with small villages and tightly clustered homes, bore the full brunt of the tremor. Seismologists warn that this region could continue to face earthquakes in the future, making it essential for Afghanistan to invest in safer housing and disaster preparedness, though such goals remain difficult under current political and economic conditions. Eyewitnesses describe scenes of chaos, parents clutching lifeless children, survivors screaming for relatives still trapped, and rows of bodies wrapped in simple cloth awaiting burial according to Islamic rites. Yet amidst the sorrow, there are also stories of resilience. Neighbors risked their lives to pull each other from rubble, imams recited prayers to give courage to the shaken, and communities gathered whatever little food and water they had to share with those who lost everything. This spirit of unity reflects the Islamic principle of standing together in times of hardship, reminding us that faith becomes stronger in the face of calamity. The Taliban announcement of the rising death toll underscores the scale of loss, but also highlights the urgent need for transparency and coordination in relief. The world must see beyond politics and remember the human suffering at stake. Afghanistan, a nation already battered by decades of war and poverty, now faces nature's cruelty. Whether one agrees or disagrees with the government in power, the moral duty of Muslims and all of humanity is to support innocent people who are struggling for survival. Donating to reputable relief agencies, pressuring governments to send humanitarian assistance, and raising awareness on social media are practical ways people around the world can contribute. The long-term impact of such earthquakes is not limited to immediate deaths and injuries. Survivors often suffer from post-traumatic stress, losing their sense of safety every time the ground trembles. Children may refuse to sleep indoors, fearing another collapse, while parents struggle with the impossible task of rebuilding homes with no resources. Afghanistan's repeated exposure to earthquakes means that without proper reconstruction efforts, the cycle of disaster will continue. Instead of temporary shelters alone, what is truly needed are stronger homes, improved infrastructure, and disaster education for communities. Unfortunately, given the current conditions, such solutions remain more of a hope than a reality. The global Muslim community has an opportunity to lead with compassion. Islamic teachings emphasize that when one part of the Ummah suffers, the rest must feel the pain and extend a helping hand. Afghanistan is home to millions of Muslims who, despite poverty and conflict, have shown resilience and faith throughout history. This earthquake is not just their tragedy, it is a call for solidarity. Beyond material aid, prayers for the deceased, the injured, and the survivors are a spiritual support that gives strength to those enduring immense grief. Mosques around the world can dedicate sermons, du'a, and fundraising campaigns to highlight the urgency of the situation. The Taliban Interior Ministry has stressed that international cooperation is vital, yet they also face the challenge of managing aid in a way that reaches the right people without corruption or mismanagement. The global community must therefore ensure accountability while not delaying the flow of relief. Every passing hour means more lives lost under rubble, more injuries untreated, and more families forced into despair. Timely response is the difference between life and death in such emergencies. As rescue teams battle against time, the international media must keep shining a light on this disaster so the world does not forget Afghanistan once again. This earthquake reminds us of the fragility of life and the unpredictability of nature. For Afghans, it is another layer of suffering added to years of conflict, poverty, and political upheaval. For the rest of the world, it is a test of humanity, compassion, and unity. Whether through aid, advocacy, or prayer, everyone has a role to play in helping the victims of this devastating quake. Afghanistan does not stand alone. The Muslim Ummah and global community must rise to the occasion, proving that even in times of division, we can unite to bring relief, hope, and dignity to those most in need.